This morning, in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, President Trump expressed uncertainty about whether Republicans will keep control of the House in next year's midterm elections. The president touted his economic policies, but acknowledged that it would take time for voters to feel their full impact. When asked whether Republicans would lose the House, Trump said in part, "I can't tell you. I don't know when all of this money is going to kick in." He went on to say, "I've created the greatest economy in history, but it may take people a while to figure all these things out. All this money that's pouring into our country is building things right now. Car plants, AI, lots of stuff. I cannot tell you how that's going to equate to the voter. All I can do is my job." Meanwhile, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles appeared last week on the YouTube channel The Mom View to talk about next year's midterm plans.
Typically, in the midterms, it's not about who's sitting at the White House. It's you localize the election.
Right.
And you keep the federal officials out of it. We're actually going to turn that on its head.
Good.
And put them on the ballot, because so many of those low propensity voters are Trump voters.
Yes, they are.
And we saw a week ago Tuesday what happens when he's not on the ballot and not active. So I haven't quite broken it to him yet, but he's going to campaign like it's 2024 again.
What you have just seen in this video is something that goes unnoticed by many people, but it says a great deal about the political moment the United States is living through. This was not just another interview, nor merely a behind-the-scenes analysis. It was Donald Trump, even if indirectly, admitting something he has always tried to hide: uncertainty. For the first time in a long while, Trump did not speak like someone who fully controls the game. He spoke like someone who is hoping things will work out. Trump has always built his image on the idea of absolute strength, the man who knows everything, who fixes everything, who never hesitates. But now the tone has changed. He talks about money that has yet to take effect, projects that are just beginning, investments that will be felt someday. That vocabulary is revealing. When a politician starts asking for time, it's because the present is no longer convincing. And that carries enormous weight, because the average voter does not live on future promises. They live in the present. They live with grocery prices, gas costs, rent, energy bills. They live with a sense of security or insecurity. And when that feeling doesn't improve, no amount of rhetoric can hold things together for long. Trump tries to compensate for this fragility with his familiar grandiose rhetoric: the biggest economy, the biggest investments, the greatest growth. But repeating slogans does not turn perception into reality. There is a gap between what is said on the campaign stage and what is felt in everyday life. And that gap begins to show precisely when the discourse stops being offensive and becomes defensive. This is where the behind-the-scenes strategy becomes even more significant. The attempt to turn the midterm elections into a kind of personal plebiscite on Trump is not an act of confidence. It is an act of necessity. It is an admission that the party, on its own, cannot sustain itself. It needs Trump as its main engine, even while knowing that he is also a source of rejection. American political history consistently shows that presidents in power almost always suffer losses in midterm elections. This is not theory, it is a pattern. And Trump has tried to defy that pattern before. In his first term, he bet on permanent campaigning, weekly rallies, constant mobilization. The result was a significant defeat with a major loss of seats. Insisting on the same formula while expecting a different outcome is not boldness. It is stubbornness. And more than that, it is a misreading of the political moment. Trump works best when he presents himself as an outsider, a rebel against the system. But when he is the system, when he is in command, voters start listening differently. The contradictions become more evident. At one moment, he acknowledges economic suffering. The next, he claims everything is already better than ever. Voters notice this dissonance, and once they do, they begin to distrust not only future promises, but also the explanations for current problems. Here is my direct opinion. Trump's biggest problem today is not just the economy or the polling numbers. It is the political and psychological isolation he has built around himself. He has surrounded himself with people who do not challenge him, who turn any criticism into a personal attack and any negative data into a conspiracy. That creates a comfortable bubble, but a deeply dangerous one. Inside that bubble, Trump remains the savior. Outside of it, the perception grows that he is disconnected from the country's everyday reality, and that disconnect comes at a cost. When Trump is out of power, his excesses are seen as style. When he is in power, the same excesses are seen as irresponsibility. That does not mean he is politically finished. Far from it. Underestimating Trump has always been a serious mistake. He knows how to exploit fear, resentment, and disinformation. He knows how to demobilize voters, discredit institutions, and create enough chaos to confuse public debate. And that is exactly why this moment calls for attention, not complacency. What you have just seen is not a sign of definitive defeat, but it is a sign of real wear and tear, a kind of erosion that cannot be fixed with rallies or recycled slogans. It is fixed with concrete results, and for a significant portion of the electorate, those results have not yet arrived. The central point is this: Trump may say he does not know what will happen in the next elections, but history shows that nothing happens by accident. When a leader begins to show doubt, it is because they feel control of the narrative slipping through their fingers. And regaining that control becomes far more difficult when reality keeps contradicting the message. This is not an invitation to relax. It is a call for political responsibility. Democracies do not defend themselves. They depend on participation, memory, and critical thinking. They depend on voters who are not driven solely by noise, but who look at facts and consequences. If this kind of analysis makes sense to you, leave your like now. It helps the channel continue to grow. Subscribe so you don't miss future videos, and write in the comments. Do you believe Donald Trump can still rebuild this narrative of strength, or are we witnessing the beginning of a political decline he no longer knows how to control?